Oh, well, I'm Dustin with Kruger Instruments and Kruger's Training Academy. Today we're going to go through the USC 10th edition 2-valve test procedures with the additional check valve 2 differential. This will come up. It's not going to come up if you're in like California or something, or someone that uses the USC 10th edition verbatim. We've come across, I know, Hillsborough County in Florida near Tampa Bay. They wanted the check valve 2 readings. We actually used to do the trio procedures in our classes. You have trio. They're good people. We kind of had a falling out. I used to be like an instructor for them. But like my own class, when I was like listed as an instructor, the guy I know there, Les O'Brien, very good guy, very knowledgeable. But they kind of, I think he retired, but he was still on board, but he's not anymore. He's kind of older. Very good guy though. So we kind of had a falling out with the other people doing it. Now we do classes in Florida and Georgia where they do also. But I noticed most of the areas, they're kind of whatever, like the USC 10th is reputable enough. There's also the ASSE one hose procedures. If you check out our channel, we also have those. They're probably applicable in your area. But currently we're offering the USC 10th edition. But we have these additional steps. Hillsborough, they actually looked at my website and they were like, yeah, I looked at your test procedures, but you don't do these additional steps. That's a problem for us. So we wanted to go ahead and correct that for them specifically. So we're just gonna go through the whole test. It starts with all the other procedures. Then you have the optional end of test procedures with Trio. Actually, I noticed in Trio, I go to their conferences a lot. I actually got kicked out of their conferences though at some point. So essentially, but anyway, the last conference I went to was like 1 year ago. They actually said they were doing away with these optional tests. So by the time you get there, they might have already done away with it, depending on if you're doing that. If you're studying for a trio exam, like you're in a class and you're doing the trio exam, they generally use the 5-valve kits. We're gonna use the 2-valve, which is off of the USC 10th edition. So I guess we'll get started with the test. There's 4 test cocks, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an RPZ assembly, it's a Watts 009. You have the outlet shut off and the inlet shut off. This is shut off 1, this is shut off 2. Before you even start doing anything, right, there's a few things you're supposed to do. Notify, identify, inspect, observe. Your proctor, whatever you're doing, if you're doing like ABPA or something, they're very specific about it. If you're taking one of our classes or the other ones, you probably just say the words. In ABPA, they might be like, oh yeah, like, what are you observing? And you're supposed to know that. There is like a lot of verbiage with that. Next, you flush the test cocks. For USC and most of them out there, you open all of them. So you open 4, open 3, open 2, open 1, close 1, close 2, close 3, close 4. The reason you're doing it that way is because you're introducing flow through the assembly, so your relief valve won't jump prematurely. USC and a lot of those, they're very worried about jumping it earlier. I know ASSE, depending on what you're doing, they might not be as much. So now we'll install appropriate fittings. Some of your proctors, they might want you to go like, oh, I'm installing my fittings. This is a Watts. Most of the Watts ones come with the fittings already installed. If you're doing a larger valve, maybe they could be 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch test cocks. If that's the case, you do have to adapt them down to the smaller size. Close all needle valves. For the 2-valve kits, you only have 2 needle valves. This is the Kruger Instruments TK2. We use these a lot at our classes. Definitely check us out if you're in the market for a test kit. Very reputable construction. They're ASSE 1064 compliant with regards to all the components. We have the line pressure gauge. We have the descending scale accuracy, 0.2 PSI. Definitely check us out. There should be a link in the description for that. But it says close all needle valves. You just close the 2. Attach high hose to test cock 2. Attach low hose to test cock 3. For USC, they want you to bleed everything while you're doing it. Attach bypass hose to the low bleed. You open test cock 3. Open low bleed. Wait till water comes out of the bypass hose. Open high bleed, or no, open test cock 2 while water's flowing. Open high bleed. Now while the water's flowing, you close shut off 2. Now you close your high bleed. The number should go up to the higher end of the range. Make sure all your hoses are tight. So it should go up to like 15, then you close low bleed. You're gonna dump a lot of water doing this. It kind of is what it is. You should have a bucket or something if you're in a zone. The RPs actually are supposed to be in a zone where they have a drain, like a floor drain. So you might want to aim the water at the floor drain. For the USC, you just kind of like observe it if it's tight. If it's discharging upon arrival or something like that, it's not going to be tight. For us, we're getting 7.6. So you just kind of say, okay, the check valve 1 is observed to be tight. It's not the final reading because the check valve could be open due to flow to the customer. Now you're going to do the relief valve opening point. You attach bypass hose to the high side. If you're using a 3-valve or a 5-valve kit, it's actually kind of looped together already. For the 2-valve kits, you have to loop it, so you just kind of loop it around. Open your high side bleed valve. Open your low side a quarter turn. It's going to start dropping. You shouldn't open it a full quarter turn. You open it like kind of a little bit, maximum a quarter turn. I see the relief valve is open, and we're getting 4.6. So that is the relief valve opening point that we get. If you open it up more, you're going to see a whole lot of water coming out, and you see a little lighter of a number. Now I'm getting 3.8. That's not the opening point. You want to get the point at which it actually just barely opens. You close both bleed valves. Detach bypass hose from low bleed. So stay on the high bleed. Detach from the low bleed. You attach your bypass hose to test cock 4. High bleed should be closed at this point. Open test cock 4. Then you reset the gauge. So you open and close low bleed. If you notice before I bled it, if you rewind the video, it was a little lower. You got to get it to go up to the high end and back down. If you leave it at the lower number, it actually isn't accurate. So I'm getting 6.9 now. So now we do the check valve 2 tightness, right? So we open high bleed. If you notice, it goes down a little bit. Now it's at 6.2. That's totally fine. That's called discompression. It might go down a little more than that. You want to reset your gauge, then open it. If it stops at some point, so if it's steady at a number, then that means check valve 2 is tight. That means the check valve moved a little bit due to discompression, but now it's steady. That means check valve 2 does not leak. Now we wanted to, so that's actually like now you do the tightness of number 1 check. So now that we've established flow through the assembly, or flow through test cock 2 to test cock 4, you have your high hose to 2, high bleed is open, your vent hose is to 4, 4 is open. That means if shutoff 2 leaks, it actually doesn't matter. So for USC, if you have a leaky shutoff 2, doesn't matter, doesn't affect the test. If it's leaking a whole lot, you might have to do a bypass arrangement. That's in the diagnostics. But if it's leaking just a little bit, it doesn't affect the test. Mostly because the check valve is still shut. It's confirmed to be in a no flow condition because of the bleed off going through test cock 2 to 4. Now we're going to do the tightness of number 1. Open and close. It'll reset your gauge at the number 1 number. You notice it is a little higher than when we first opened this. So you want to make sure you're getting the right number. 7.6 is what I'm getting for check valve 1. So now we're going to start the additional steps. So if you're in Florida, Georgia, probably some other areas around there, you have to do additional steps to get the check valve 2 reading. If you wanted to do the 1 hose, your jurisdiction might allow it. you want to check with them first. But if you check out our other videos, we have a ASSE one hose procedure that might work for you. It's a little simpler, fewer steps, but again, you want to check and make sure. Some jurisdictions only allow the 3 hose for the RPs. What you do now, I'm reading what? 7, now it's like 7.7. Make sure all of your hoses are drip tight. If you have anything leaking, it will affect your test. You shut test cock 2. When you shut test cock 2, if you have anything leaking, whether it's the shut off or any of your valves, your number will start dropping. I'm still at 7.6. So if it's not dropping, then you're good to go. I'll simulate a drop here that you might see with a leaky shut off. So if it goes down, that means you have a leaky number 2 shut off. Being that we found it to be tight, we go ahead and resume the test. The reason you have to test that shut off too is to make sure there's no flow to the customer. If you have flow through the valve and then you move these hoses over to do a 2 hose test on the check valve 2, you'll actually get it where your check valve 2 is technically open when you're testing it. There's no way to bypass it the way we did with the high 2 to 4. There's like no 5th test cock or whatever. So you can't do that for this one. So you have to do it. This is how they break it down. So these are the additional steps to get the check valve 2 reading. Close all of your test cocks, remove all of your equipment, make sure that your needle valves are closed, and then you go ahead and do the second auxiliary step. So the first auxiliary step, shut test cock 2, confirm there's no flow. Now we'll do the second auxiliary step, attach high to 3, low to 4. Loop your hose around, close your valves, make sure they're closed. You open the downstream one, so test cock 4, open your low bleed, introduces flow. Open test cock 3, open your high bleed, introduces flow. Close your high bleed first, your gauge will go up a little bit. You want it to kind of go up quite a bit. Then you close your low side bleed valve and it'll drop down to whatever differential pressure you have on check 2. For us, it's a little low. It's kind of like 1.1. Typically it is a little higher than that, but that is what I'm reading, 1.0, 1.1. Has to be at least 1 for that second check. So again, there's a couple differences. USC 10th edition, which is the textbook we use in Florida and Georgia, they actually only test check 2 under back pressure. For those 2 areas, or specifically some of the counties, I know Hillsborough County reached out to us about that. Some of the other counties, maybe they would as well. You want to make sure you're getting that check valve 2 reading in addition. If you're doing the 1 hose procedures, that is actually already included. They don't do a back pressure test. But anything 3 hose, whether it's USC, ASSC, anything like that, you do have to do that additional test. So I appreciate you guys watching the video. If you made it this far, you definitely got something out of our content. Feel free to like and subscribe. Comment any questions. A lot of times people have the same questions. They see the comments. And then, yeah, just good luck on your exams, and appreciate you watching the video.